Hi there. Thank you so much for joining me for a live session of navigating the culture of the workforce of the future. I'm Shannon Kavanaugh, CEO of Archbright. We are the go-to resource for employers in the Pacific Northwest, and our focus is on elevating the workplace so that you can provide. I'm sorry. We are the go-to resource for employers in the Pacific Northwest, and our focus is on elevating workplace performance by providing easy and affordable access to leadership, HR, safety, and employment law experts and resources. And that is what I wanted to share with you today. I wanted to share 4 critical practices for you to assess, hone, and get really good at in your organization so that you're ready to address the needs of this future workforce. And I'm hoping that you will reach out to me directly after this and, drop questions or your own ideas either into email or in the comments below so that we can keep this dialogue going and learn from each other. Okay, let's get started. When I talk to CEOs in our membership inside of Washington State and really across the country, one of the things that I hear from them, aside from the economy and the COVID impact that they've been facing, is that they are obsessed with what is going to happen with the talent pool and how are they going to attract and retain good talent to meet the demands that they're seeing in their businesses. And in fact, one of the studies showed that 62% say that's the biggest leadership challenge that they have, the labor shortage and getting good talent. So what I wanted to talk about today are 4 practices that you need to be looking at, honing, doing, like you got to get really good at this. And why is that? Well, first of all, the unemployment rate is very low. And we all heard about the Great Resignation last year. And over the last couple of years, the 4 main reasons that people are quitting their jobs have changed a little bit from previous years. The lack of career development and advancement is number 1. Inadequate total compensation is number 2. Uncaring and uninspiring leaders is number 3. And the lack of meaningful work is number 4. And so we really need to look at these 4 reasons that people are leaving, because it's also the reasons why they're coming to your organization or what they're looking for when they come to your organization. Now, it's true. The unemployment rate is historically low. In Washington State, it's at 4.2%. And in the country, it's at 3.5%. So with unemployment this low, it's going to be very difficult to find the talent that you need in your organization. Many of us have been listening and hearing about all of the layoffs that have been happening in big tech most recently in recent months. And we are expecting a softening of the economy going into 2024. So that's going to give us some relief in this area, but not enough. So it's still really important to understand the dynamics and the unemployment rate, because that inherently makes your talent pool smaller. Moreover, the labor shortage in general is not going to end anytime soon. So while there will be a softening as we potentially are moving into a short but mild recession, that recession will be short, and it's predicted to be much more mild than the recession we experienced during the Great Recession. So it's short-lived. So be very careful about how you view any sort of relief you're going to start seeing in the labor market, because it's short-lived, and you need to have these things in place that I'm going to be talking about to make sure that you're solid going into when the economy recovers, which is expected to recover strongly by 2025. So what are the 4 critical practices? The first one is compensation and benefits. The second one is the need for speed. The third one is the workplace itself. And the fourth one is your culture. So let's start with compensation and benefits. Compensation and benefits used to be what we would call a hygiene item. You had to have fair compensation and benefits, but it wasn't one of the key drivers to employee engagement, or really why employees were leaving organization in great droves. That's not the case now. We have seen really strong wage inflation over the last couple of years. to the tune in Washington state of about 4 to 6% year over year. And while we do expect that to stabilize over this next 18 months as the economy is adjusting during this potential recessionary period, it's short-lived again, and it's not necessarily going to come to a halt, and it's certainly not going to regress. It's going to continue to grow, just maybe not at that rate it had been growing. So it's super important for you to look at your compensation practices and make sure that you're paying at market, because being competitive on pay is not only going to help you attract talent, it's going to keep people from leaving. And as you saw in that chart, it's the number 2 reason why people are leaving organizations today. Paying at market is very important, and it's made more challenging with some of the new laws that we are seeing, particularly here in Washington state, but many states like ours. There's a handful of states that are following suit of Colorado, who initiated this law first, I believe, and it's going to continue to grow state by state. So it's not going away, and the law as of now for pay equity and pay transparency, and as of 2023 in Washington state, if you're an employer over 15 employees, you now need to post the range of your job and the benefits provided for each job that you are recruiting for. What is that going to do? Well, it's going to make it more transparent, both to your employees and to the employees coming to you, what pay you're offering. So please make sure that your compensation structures are solid, that you have vetted your positions against the market, that you've created ranges that you can use to promote, because that is going to make negotiations more interesting for you in coming days, as well as put you in the highlight for any pay equity issues that you have. So on compensation, what you're looking for is, are you playing at market? Do you have equity built into your system? And do you have a solid benefits package to go along with that compensation? Many times a good solid benefits package can make up for some deficiencies you may have in your pay system. Now, what I would say about benefits is, poll your employees periodically to make sure that the benefit package you have is actually the benefit package that they want and need. Because again, the demographics of the workforce are changing. And a lot of times we just have the same kind of set of benefits over time. So really look at those and change them. And one of the things you might think about is how your PTO works, how your leave works, some of the additional items in your benefits package that are beyond health care and retirement. So that's employee compensation, and that's something that you should assess the strength of your current compensation system against those items I talked about to make sure that you're ready for this next workforce. The next one is the need for speed. And this is one of the key mistakes I see organizations make when it comes to trying to attract new talent in their recruiting process. We have so much time. Just historically, we've built in a lot of time in our recruiting process, and we don't have a luxury of time. When you have a smaller candidate pool, I should say, and you have this labor shortage that's caused by migrations and remote working and all the other things that are amplifying it, you can't afford to have long recruiting cycles. So I would advise that you look deep into your process and make sure that you've cut out all the waste that you possibly can, that you're able to, from post to onboarding, to move through the process quickly, that you're posting quickly, that you're sourcing quickly, that you're interviewing quickly, that you're making your hire decision quickly, that you're onboarding each new hire into your culture and your organization as quickly as possible, because that is something that this new workforce is expecting. That's what their attention span aligns with. And if you aren't moving at the speed that you need to, you're going to miss out on the opportunities available to you. The next area to look at is the workplace itself. And this is an area where I would say has had the most, in the news lately, which is the remote work policy. So what COVID did was it took something that was already quite desirable and made it almost a requirement of some employees in certain positions. So employees more than ever want to have flexibility. That's what I would say is the word of the day. Flexibility. They want to have more flexibility in where they work. So whether that's remotely in other states, even internationally, they want to know that they have that flexibility of where, but also when. Flexibility of their time, of when they're going to be working, so that they can blend their work time with their personal time. And the new generation coming in cares about that more than ever. So having as much flexibility as is possible in your organization. Now, I understand as a CEO of an organization that you can't have flexibility everywhere, that you have customers to serve, and that you have teams that need to collaborate, and that there are certain positions that have more flexibility than other positions. And what I would advise is that you study every process and every position to make sure that you are offering as much flexibility as you possibly can while still meeting the needs of your business. We're seeing a little change most recently with CEOs bringing employees back to the office in more of a hybrid mode that were originally at a fully virtual mode. So I expect that as this plays out, organizations will be moving back and forth between remote to hybrid to back in the office. You're going to see a lot of volatility in this concept, but I would continue to advise you, particularly with the new workforce coming in, to be as flexible as you possibly can when it comes to the workplace. The other thing about the workplace is when you do have a physical location where your employees work, really pay attention to the environment of that workplace, particularly in the manufacturing sector. The current and new workforce coming in are not interested in working in a stinky, dirty, unsafe work environment. They will leave perhaps on the very first day if they feel that the work environment is not clean, is not safe, does not have good energy. So despite what, I've had lots of CEOs just look at me and roll their eyes, and I can tell you can roll your eyes at me, but that's the truth. So please take a look at your workplace environment, both physically and flexibly, because that is what's going to win the day in this new workforce. The other thing about the workplace is time off. The new and future workforce really cares deeply about their time off. And you even saw in the news recently with Microsoft going to unlimited PTO, or at the minimum, I would advise that you go to non-accrued PTO, meaning front-loaded PTO that your team members can access more flexibly by having it already banked versus having to accrue it over time. Again, I know this is a controversial concept, but it means a great deal to the generation coming into the workforce. And then the last best practice for you to really assess within your organization is your culture. And what I would say here, and the biggest takeaway I want you to have when it comes to your culture, is that you need to look at your culture, assess your culture, define your culture, and promote your culture as if it were your brand. Many companies spend a lot of time, energy, resources really defining their brand image for the marketplace. And you need to do the same thing with your organizational culture when it comes to promoting your workplace, both to your existing employees and to those you want to attract to your organization. So the first thing you need to do, though, here is really know what your culture is. And a lot of times when I'm talking to CEOs, they think their culture is one thing, but their culture is not that, or the employees would assess them on a different scale than what the leadership would expect. So the very first thing, and this is a great time to do it during this period of time where there might be some softening of the marketplace and your employees are hanging tight with you longer, is to really assess what your employees believe your culture is. We use the Denison Culture Survey, both internally here at Archbright and with our members, to do an assessment of a company's culture and identify the quadrants of a culture that most need attention of the leadership team, so that they can create action items and really look to improve and build the culture they intend to have. Once you have a strong culture that both the leadership team feels good about, as well as the employees, something that people want to be a part of, then you want to continually poll and survey your organization for through engagement surveys or pulse surveys to really measure how your organization is feeling about its culture. And one way to do that is through what I call the employer or employee net promoter score. We run an engagement pulse survey every quarter, and there are about 10 questions on this pulse survey. But the one question that makes up the net promoter score is, how likely are you to recommend the company as a good place to work to your friends, your families, and other colleagues? Not necessarily how likely are you to recommend them to work for your organization, because they may not be qualified or be interested in your industry, but how likely are you to recommend them, your company, as a good place to work? And this particular question and the score that it delivers, you're looking for in that grade to excellence, is a way for you to measure on a quarterly basis how well your culture is working for you in terms of being a place that people want to stay working at, they want to promote it as a good place to work, and people want to come to work for. So that's another tool you can consider. And then once you've kind of identified what your culture is, you're measuring that you're delivering well on that culture, make sure you don't forget to promote it to the marketplace and really treat it in the same way, again, as you do your external brand, because the future workforce is studying you and researching you, and the way that social media has made it possible for them to really get a flavor for what your culture is before even interviewing with you is something that's out of your control now. So what is in your control is to really curate to the best of your ability what your culture image is to that marketplace, and pay attention to what people are saying. Think places like Glassdoor or Indeed or LinkedIn, and stay engaged with the marketplace so that your workplace culture is being promoted the way you want it to be. So those are the 4 critical practices: compensation and benefits, the need for speed, the workplace itself, and finally your culture. Again, I'm hoping that you're going to contact me directly with some of your ideas or questions. If you have them, I'm happy to answer. But if you have some great ideas about how to work and navigate this future workforce, I'd love to hear about them. I'm sure many people in our community would like to hear from them. Or drop your questions or comments below so that we can continue this dialogue going forward. In the meantime, have a wonderful 2023, and good luck with you, and thanks for joining me.